Welcome to the SGV Master Key, a show where you will hear personal stories of triumph over failures and how others successfully navigated the unique landscape that is the San Gabriel Valley. What makes us different? Well, just like you, we have chosen the San Gabriel Valley for our home or businesses or both. We believe it is the people and small businesses that make this community great, and we love to share their stories with you. We always encourage your questions and feedback, and you can find all of our contact information at sgvmasterkey.com. Here are the hosts for the show, Russell Mono and Scott Warman.
Hello and welcome to the show. We have a very special guest today, Mayor Andrew Rodriguez, and I'm your host, Russell.
I'm Scott.
Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you both for having me. I appreciate the invite.
We're excited to have you here. So let's get right into it. What is your connection to the San Gabriel Valley?
Sure. So I am a lifelong resident of the San Gabriel Valley. I was born and raised in Walnut. My identical twin brother and I went to Walnut Public Schools from kindergarten through 12th grade. We both graduated from Walnut High School, and then we both went to the East Coast for our undergraduate studies. I went to Rutgers University, spent 4 years there, graduated, came back, did an AmeriCorps service year after college. At the same time, started getting involved in
Where
Where
did you serve in the AmeriCorps?
So that's a great question. I did my service year with a nonprofit called the Youth Policy Institute, and I worked with high school students in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, and in the City West MacArthur Park area of the city. So I did that for a year, in between 2015 and 2016. And at the same time started getting involved in Walnut and, thought about it and was really interested in running for office. And so I pulled the trigger, and in April 2016, I was elected.
So what is it that really got you interested in politics, or specifically the city council? You had been in New Jersey going to school at Rutgers. You'd been in the inner city in Los Angeles. When did all of this start to, foment in your mind?
Yeah, so I've always had a keen interest in public service and in politics. In 2001, my dad had a fellowship with the Brookings Institute. So he was in Washington, D.C. for a year, and my family would go back east and travel out there to visit him, and he exposed us to all kinds of cool places like the Capitol. We went to the White House, and we would go on the Senate floor, and it was just really my first experience about how public service can impact so many people. And so from there, I was probably 8 or 9 at the time. From 8 years old on, I always had a really keen interest in politics. Always in the back of my head wanted to, or at least had the option, or kept the option open of running for office. But it wasn't really, kind of just fell on my lap at the time. I had graduated from Rutgers, and at Rutgers, I was exposed to city planning and how cities are created, how they develop over time, and that was just fascinating to me. And as this idealistic college kid, right out of school, coming back and getting involved in your community, I had the energy and I had a vision of what I would want Walnut to look like. And I felt at the time that was not being implemented, and so that was really kind of the spark.
So it sounds it was more. It was not necessarily a political interest, as a community-based interest.
I would say it was because we were starting our general plan update at the time, and I remember the city manager right after I got elected. He brought me into his office. He said, "Hey, I know you have a background in land use and planning. I think you're going to really like this project that we're doing, and we're just starting." And I said, "Yeah, that was one of the reasons why I decided to run." And he's like, "Okay, well, what do you want your hometown to look like by the time you're my age, by the time you have gray hair?" And so I took that to heart, and I'm like, "Okay, this is what I want Walnut to look like."
How old were you at that time?
23.
Wow.
So you had not run for office yet, but you were interacting with the officials?
So this was right after I got elected.
Right after.
But I had told Rob Wishner, our city manager, that that was one of the big reasons why I wanted to run, is because I have a really keen interest in land use, architecture, design, and how I want our community to look like and grow over the next several years and decades.
And he has gone on to get a master's at USC, isn't that right?
That is correct. I graduated last year with a master's of real estate development.
Mm-hmm. So real estate development means city planning?
No, it's different.
Okay.
And a lot of people get that confused. So I remember when I was, the first year I was on council, I was interacting with a lot of different parties, developers, constituents that had concerns about different issues. And one time after a meeting, the developer pulled me aside and he's like, hey, I see you have a really keen interest in land use. I think you would really like the program that I graduated from. And at the time, I had already started looking at graduate programs for city planning. But what I liked about the USC MRED program, Master Real Estate Development program, was that it gave me kind of an education and a foundation as to the financial part of real estate development. City planning is a lot more policy based, and there are pro formas that you have to learn about and stuff. But the MRED program was much more in depth about the financials and the pro formas and how to make projects feasibly work. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important when it comes to design and real estate development. You can have the best ideas, but if they don't pencil out, then it's not going to happen. And so I think that really gave me a broader perspective, and it's helped me on land use decisions when I'm on council as well.
So you have some real substantive interests and ambitions. But what's interesting about you, and probably what will mark you for some time, is that you were a young person who got elected to an important position at an early age.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how that has affected you and how that has formed you, because a lot of people may not take you seriously. Have you run into that?
Yeah. I remember the first probably 3 months into office, I was meeting with some consultant with our city staff, and we were sitting there, and he was like, all right, I think this is everybody. Where's the council member? And I was like, oh, I'm right here. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you were the intern.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I think you in a lot of ways, you're more a curiosity piece than...
Yeah. People always like to ask me questions like, how did you do it? Because when I ran, nobody thought I was going to win.
Right.
I was this 23-year-old kid out of college doing an AmeriCorps service year, had the least amount of money in my campaign account, but I walked and knocked on doors every day. And I really do believe that if you have the heart for public service, you need to go out and talk to voters and really hear what their issues and what their passions are. And
so that was a very important term you used, public service.
Yes.
Because I've always thought, my sort of personal opinion is, the best politicians are not politicians, they're public servants, and they know that they're public servants.
Correct.
And you used that language yourself.
I consider myself a public servant. I was fortunate enough that enough people in the city of Walnut trusted me to make decisions on their behalf. And I'll always remember that. And I think that's what keeps me grounded, and that's what kind of sets my compass as a public servant and as an elected official.
Do you know that you have something in common with Scott?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. He actually beat me in terms of youngest elected official in the state.
Yeah, I had a head start, though. I had about a 40-year head start.
Yeah.
Well, I can identify with some of what you experienced, because I always felt I was elected at age 18 to a city council position.
Yeah.
And I felt I was a curiosity piece. This is how people presented me. And for a while, I kind of wore it like a ball and chain, as opposed to feeling really proud about it, because, I felt that people were looking at me not as somebody serious about what they were doing. But as a kid who, got elected, almost as a fling,
Yeah.
So I'm sure, that's why I asked the question of you before. You probably feel that. But in fact, you have a very substantial personal background, having gone through 4 years of college, AmeriCorps service, master's at USC.
And I worked as a land use consultant here in Pasadena, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what was that all about?
So yeah, I worked for a small firm called Art Rodriguez and Associates. No relation to Miss Rodriguez, but we worked on entitlement projects throughout California, and that was also a very cool experience because that helped me with planning documents, navigating planning documents, and dealing with other municipalities. So.
Yeah. Well, go back to your election and prior to your election.
Okay.
What was going through your mind? What was that like? Were you getting support, or was this something that was your own little secret that you wanted to do?
So I was very fortunate that I have a really great mentor who Jay Chen, who is on the Mount Sac Community College Board. And right after college, after I graduated, I was traveling a little bit, then came home to Southern California and was looking for a job. And at the time, Jay Chen, who I'd met when he was running for Congress back in 2012, was running for the Mount Sac Community College District. And he's like, hey, I know you're still looking for a job, but if you want to learn about politics and how to run a campaign, a grassroots campaign, why don't you come work and help me out on my campaign? So I would go over almost every day, and he would teach me how to cut data, how to prepare a walk script. And when we went to talk to voters, I would stand next to him, and he would show me, like, okay, look, this household has a Democrat and a Republican, so this is how I'm going to engage the household. And it was really great. I learned a lot. And had I not had that experience, I don't think I would have been elected today, because it was such a great learning experience about how to cut data, how to talk to voters, how to target voters, which households do you want to talk to. It was really a transformational experience in terms of how I would decide to run my campaign, because I didn't have a lot of resources. I didn't raise that much money, but I was efficient with my money, and I wanted to make sure that with what I did have, that I had the opportunity to reach just as many people as the people who had raised more money than I did.
So how was it that you came upon the decision to run for the city of Walnut City Council? Yeah,
and I think this is a personal struggle that I was dealing with at the time. I was 22 when I was thinking about it, right? And I wanted to do it. I knew deep down that I wanted to do it, but nobody had asked me, hey, you should run. And I remember talking, when I was studying abroad in Australia, I studied at this English type of college setting at the University of Melbourne. I was living at Ormond College, which is like a residential college within the university. And before I left, I had a meeting with the master of the college, and he would ask me, like, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, I want to go into public service. And he told me, you'll know it's time to run for office when people start approaching you and suggesting to you that you should run for office. So I always remember that. And at the time, nobody had asked me to run for office yet. And I wanted to do it, but I had always remembered that conversation I had with my residential college master. And I was kind of torn. I'm like, okay, I want to do this, but nobody has encouraged me to do so. Like, is it not my time? Like, what's going on? And so I was very self-conscious about that. And I was kind of stuck because I wanted to do it, but I was at the same time self-conscious that, maybe I haven't put enough time in. Maybe it's just not the right time. And I went to a Concerts in the Park series at Creekside Park in the city of Walnut. And my friend's mom, who I went to high school with, her son, she approached me, and she's like, hey, Andrew, I don't know if you've ever thought about this, and I'm going to throw out a curveball idea, but I think you'd be a great city council member. And it was really that moment where I knew, I'm like, okay, it's time. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring.
There it was.
Yeah.
I'm interested in, I would have hesitation to do any kind of business in the city that I grew up. Did you feel any of that?
Not at all. I felt more empowered because I felt like I really know the city.
Okay, nice. And you brought something with you today. Could you describe that?
Yeah. So this is a little memento I got from the Alameda Corridor East Construction Authority, and I brought it. This was I call it a plaque, but a little gift that we got from the grade separation ceremony that I had, that I went to, about little more than 2 months after I got elected. And I brought this because this was the first experience as a council member where I really realized that the decisions and the policies that I would be working on in the very near future would impact so many lives for a long period of time. And just going to the ceremony and seeing, a finished project, even though I didn't work on, I was part of the celebration for it. This is on Nogales Street in the City of Industry by Gale.
That is, they're developing. It's the train.
Yes, so
tracks that will run from where to where?
It pretty much runs from just east of downtown LA all the way out toward the Inland Empire. But a lot of the construction work is going on around the 60 freeway corridor. And just being a part of this ceremony, it was a great eye-opening experience because it was the time that I realized that a lot of the work that I would start, while I may not see it through, eventually somebody else will. And it always stuck with me. And I keep this in my City Hall office as a kind of a reminder that, the work that you do now is going to have a long-term effect.
That's what's, I guess if you think about it, I'm trying to put together the words here.
Yeah.
Probably the fact that you're involved in something, you can't have short term. You can't look at what you're doing short term. In other words, to build a community, to be a public servant, you've got to think 50, 60, 70 years out. You've got to think about what's going to exist even when you're not alive.
Correct. And that's why I think I had so much fun with our general plan update, right? So for those of you who aren't familiar with what a general plan is, every municipality in the state of California is required to have a land use document that guides the city in terms of growth, where new development is, that kind of policy product, right? And you're supposed to do it every 5 to 10 years. Well, the city of Walnut hadn't updated its general plan since 1978.
Wow.
So it's been close to 40 years.
Wow. That's
and so it was long before I was born. And so it was really cool because this document is going to really set kind of a policy framework and a foundation of where growth in our city occurs and how we want that growth to look like, all the way up until the year 2045, 2050.
Right. It's so far in the distance, you can't even comprehend it.
Yeah.
But if somebody wasn't thinking like that 50 years ago, we wouldn't have freeways.
Yes.
We wouldn't have, the infrastructure that we all take for granted. It isn't developed overnight. It isn't developed in a 1 year or 2 year period. Somebody has got to be thinking about it and caring about what the next generation is going to experience.
Yeah. And I think that's what really separates the good public servants from the great public servants.
Right. Yes, good point.
right. And Mayor, I wanted to hear from you about something that our audience can learn from, and if you would like to share a struggle that you've overcome in your career or your personal life, what would that be?
Yeah, I think similar to the story I shared earlier regarding kind of my being self-conscious about not being a good candidate or not being a good, having the qualifications to run. When I finally did get elected, my colleagues are attorneys, they're successful business people, and even my colleagues from other cities who I interact with, they have their own businesses, they're very successful. They're a lot older than me, and so they, have much more life experience than I do. And I was very self-conscious. And toward the beginning of my term, I was very quiet, like at council meetings and even at other regional board agency meetings, or when I was involved with other organizations like California Contract Cities or different organizations. I was very quiet because, one, I was trying to absorb everything, but two, deep down, I was actually very self-conscious about my ability. Like, am I able to teach my peers, my colleagues something? Am I able to educate? Can I compete with them? And it was something that I struggled with probably for the first year and a half during my term. It was, I was very self-conscious about it. It's like,
did you feel inadequate?
I would say at some point, yeah. In some instances, yes. But I think it was more just because I didn't have the life experiences that, others had. I was 23. Most of my colleagues and friends in the political circles that did hold elected office were maybe 15 to 20 years older than I was, had families, had successful careers, made a name for themselves before they went into public service. And it was just something that, personally, you're kind of feeling like, well, can I compete, or am I at the same caliber as everybody else? Am I able to contribute to this conversation? Because what are they going to get out of it from me? Or what do I bring to the table? But, as time went on, you learn and you're able to pick up stuff. And just through experience and working with others, you gain confidence. And over time, that slowly chipped away and finally became mayor. And, kind of an aside, being mayor of the town you grew up in is the most fun experience ever. I'll say that. But never in my wildest dreams did I have an idea that I would be the mayor of a city during a worldwide pandemic and during all this other stuff that we experienced this past year, right? Sure. I remember one of my colleagues coming up to me and was like, Andrew, you probably had the hardest mayorship of any mayor in the city of Walnut's history, just because of all the stuff going on.
Sure.
And, I might be 27, but, I've been on council for 3 years now and learned a lot and been exposed to different organizations and great people and people who are willing to mentor me. And, I think I've handled the problems very well and very professionally. And
what are some accomplishments that you feel especially proud of?
I would say the general plan update was definitely my baby project, just because of my background in land use and planning, but also it's going to be a document that's going to last decades for our city. I'm very proud of that. And it was something that I really just jumped right into, and I'm proud of the work from that. But I'm also proud of leading my city through crisis, through pandemic. That was something that I would never have expected to, have to deal with. And
there's no plan book for that.
There is none. And, with the shutdowns and how that's affected businesses, it was a wild ride. I'll have to admit, it was crazy.
And I suppose that whole time you probably questioned every move you made, not knowing, was it the right move? Was it the right decision?
I would like the first couple, maybe week or two, it was extremely difficult, but I'm very fortunate that I trust my staff, and our staff is fantastic at the city. And, our city manager, Rob, and our assistant city managers, and everybody was just so on top of it. And they did a phenomenal job. And they're really the ones I credit to. As mayor, you're the figurehead. But if you don't have great people working with you, alongside with you, then it's going to be much more difficult. And our staff is still fantastic, but they really helped me navigate through that.
Sure. Well, we have to take a break, but I'd like to ask what you would have done differently, knowing what you know now, and also what advice you have for younger people who may want to go into politics. But before that, let's take a quick break.
The legal process can be intimidating. You don't know where to start, and you're unsure of what to expect. The attorneys and staff at the law offices of Scott Wormuth have been serving the San Gabriel Valley for over 35 years, helping people just like you navigate through the legal process and ensuring you're treated fairly. You can find them at law888.com or call 626-282-6868. That's 626-282-6868.
All right, welcome back. We're still here with Mayor Andrew Rodriguez. And before the break, I had asked you, what would you have done differently, knowing what you know now, and also what advice you might have for younger people who may want to go into politics?
Yeah, that's a great question. So looking back in the last 4 years, I think a political term is more of a marathon than a sprint. Right. And so I remember the first year or so of my term, I just did everything. Everything I got invited to, I went to. I was literally all in. I was so excited. It was great. But looking back on it now, I think I really burned myself out. It wasn't really a healthy lifestyle. It was fun. I enjoyed it, and I thought I was. And I did help a lot of people, but I think looking back, I would have liked to have spread out that energy a little bit and maybe not have gone to so many events. Just for personal reasons, I think I would have just wanted to, tone it down a little bit, and not necessarily the commitment's there, right? I'm still committed to Walnut as much as today as I was when I first got elected, but it's a marathon, right? If you're running a marathon, you don't want to sprint the first 6 miles and then, the last 20 you're struggling. So looking back, I think just for personal and health reasons, I would have probably been a little bit more long-sighted in the sense that I would have wanted to save my energy, and I didn't realize the time commitment and time. I don't want to phrase this. It was just I think I wore myself out too quickly. Mm-hmm. And looking back, I think had I, really taken a look and said, okay, this is a 4-year term. This is not just a 2-year term. I would have personally, I think I would have been a lot healthier in a sense of, being a much more well-rounded person.
Sure. One of the hardest lessons for me to learn was when I said yes to something that meant saying no to other things, and Correct. I didn't realize that. So what advice do you have for a young person who may be interested in a similar path?
Yeah, I would say don't let other people tell you you're not ready. It's not your time. Wait your turn. Those are all things I've heard in my career. But you also have to make sure that you are the most, you have to work a lot harder because because of my age, I have to work a lot harder in the sense that I need to be more on top of stuff. I need to be more educated on policies. I need to be more versed and well-versed. I think somebody older than I needs to be, in a sense, because people will I already come into the room with a discredit because of my age, and I understand that.
Sure.
So I have to make up for it somehow. And so I go the extra mile to be more prepared and to be, present the best version of myself.
Sure.
What's up next for you? You are a candidate at this point.
I'm running for the California State Assembly in District 55 right now, which covers portions of LA, Orange, and San Bernardino counties. And I love my term as a city council member. It's been wonderful, but I do want to grow, and there's only so much that you can do with a city of 30,000 people. I want to make a bigger and broader impact. And what better way to do that than as a legislator, right, for the state of California, when you're voting and working on policies and laws that affect 40 million people. I think that's a great opportunity, and it's something that I definitely want to do.
What's different for you this time around? Obviously, it's a bigger scale.
Yes. Campaigns are very different. Unfortunately, most of my time is spent raising money. That's very different from my city council campaign, right? Whereas a city council campaign in a city like Walnut, small enough where, I only raised about $6,000 for my city council campaign. I loaned myself a couple of $1,000s more. But with an assembly campaign or a congressional campaign or something, a campaign that's larger, right? You do have to raise a lot of money to get your message across to that many households and that many voters. And so it's very different. And I'm, in addition to talking with voters, I'm also talking to different groups here in Southern California and in Sacramento, and working with the Democratic Party and just different groups. It's just very different sort of campaign. The structure is completely different.
Do you find yourself? Do you feel more support because you have that structure supporting you? You have the Democratic Party supporting you.
Yeah, I think it's my city council campaign was very grassroots. I had myself, my friend from high school, and a couple of Walnut High School interns on the debate team that were really excited about my candidacy. That was my campaign structure, right? Mm-hmm. On my assembly campaign, I have my general consultants, I have my local fundraiser, I have my Sacramento fundraiser, I have, coordinating with the party, coordinating with the Democratic caucus. So it's just an entirely different ball game. But it's interesting to compare.
But your story is still to be written. I mean, you're, at the beginning of whatever your life will be.
Yeah.
But have you, in your own mind, justified your decision of 4 years ago to run for the city council?
It's absolutely. I think it's been well worth it. There are some moments in my term and it's like, wow, you get to experience a wide range of emotions and experiences, right? And as you've been in public office, the night I was elected, my life changed overnight. And you get to, in addition to, I've gotten to meet presidents, mayors of big cities. I've gotten to travel to cool conferences and hear and heard great speakers. But you've also get to help people in your own community. And that's such a rewarding experience. Like yesterday, I got a letter from a resident that sent a handwritten letter to my house. And it was just a thank you letter saying, thank you for helping me fix the parking problem on my street. And it's just a very rewarding experience. And that resident felt enough gratitude to write me a personalized letter. it's wonderful. It's a great
Do you keep a journal? How are you going to sort of memorialize your life and the experiences you've had?
I have to say I don't keep a journal, but I do have almost every single document from my city council term saved in a box in chronological order. So that's some way that I can remember my experiences on council. I have the same thing from my city council campaign and for this assembly campaign. I have all these documents lined up and saved. But it's something that I do think I should start doing. I bought a journal to write in. I just haven't had the opportunity yet to actually sit down and, start writing. But that's a great idea.
So do you have other aspirations in politics beyond now, like let's say 30 years, 40 years in the future?
I don't know. I always get asked this question, but at the end of the day, I just really want to help people. If I win this election, great. I'd be ecstatic. If I don't, I think there are other ways to still contribute to society. And I understand that. I don't know where the future is going to take me, but as long as I have a meaningful life and I'm able to help others, I would be satisfied for it. Yeah, there are idealistic jobs that I think would be awesome to have. Like, I would love to be an ambassador for the United States to another country one day. But I think there are also other ways to help society, help your state, help your community, right? I will always be politically involved. I know that in the sense of like supporting other candidates, like both financially and non-financially, and being involved and, going to council meetings, and being involved with organizations that I care about and who I think are doing great things. But I don't know how that will play out for the rest of my life. And I think that's kind of exciting, right? Yeah, I think life is a journey. It's about the experience, and the opportunities are endless. And I think that's really a cool part about, being on this journey. You don't know where you're going to end up.
Sure.
What was it like when you were in high school? What kind of person were you?
In high school?
Yes. And what did you think would come of your life?
Yeah, so I would say I was kind of dorky in high school, especially like my freshman and sophomore year. I didn't know who I was. My self-confidence wasn't that high. Loved politics still at the time. I was the president of the Walnut High School Democratic Club, and it was literally just me and my friends hanging out in the classroom at lunch every month. But I was still fascinated with politics, and my one of my favorite teachers at Walnut High School, his name's Kevin Wendland, Mr. Wendland. Had him 3 years in math. He's a very conservative person, staunch Republican. But I really enjoyed discussing politics with him. And I remember my junior year, he's like, Andrew, you and your brother are probably the most politically knowledgeable students that I've ever had. That meant a lot to me. It was something that I'm very passionate about. And I remember in my senior yearbook, you get to write a quote for your senior high school portrait. And it's from my favorite John Mayer song called No Such Thing. And the quote was, "I'd like to think the best of me is still hiding up my sleeve." And I think that was true, right? That was the mindset that I had leaving high school. That, I was still trying to find myself of who I was in high school, and even in college and whatnot. But I really truly believe, like in my core, that the best of me was still hiding up my sleeve, and that eventually people would realize that.
Do you still feel that way?
I still think the best.
Exactly.
I still think the best of me is still hiding up my sleeve. I'm not done yet.
Right.
Excellent.
All right, the SGV3. This is the very interesting part of the program where we talk about places or things or experiences
Yeah.
important parts of the San Gabriel Valley to you.
Yeah.
So what's number one?
So I would say the number one spot is definitely Walnut, just because I have such a, that's where I grew up. That's where I dedicated my public service career to, and specifically in Walnut. And I think you've been there too. I have to say, there's a restaurant in Walnut, XLB Dumpling Bar.
Of course, I've been there. Yes.
Yes, we went to lunch there.
XLB, yes.
Shalong Bao Dumpling Bar.
Yeah.
And I think one of the best things that has come from my term on the city council is really my friendship with the owner and my friendship with that family of the restaurant, the Chen family. They're like us. They're like family to me. And I remember meeting them. They were starting up as a business. They're brand new on the block, and just to see them grow and just becoming so popular. Even on Yelp, they were top 10 best places to eat in the San Gabriel Valley the first year they were up and running, which is crazy, right? They're featured on Food Insider and different, food channels and stuff. So
that's kind of a touch point for you.
It is, yeah.
You saw them develop.
Yeah.
You saw them grow, and as soon as they opened the doors, they were the crowds went out and around the block.
Yeah, I remember before they opened, Ricky, who's the owner and like family to me, he showed me the restaurant. I went in there and I remember looking and I was like, wow, this place is gonna be super successful. I just had a gut feeling, and it's been cool to see them grow. And I'm sorry, that restaurant features Shanghai style dumplings, xiaolong bao. Yes.
And so it's just a very popular.
Better than Din Tai Fung?
I'm going to be biased, but they're in Walnut, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
all right. So what's another place of
Number
significance?
2. Yes. I, from a planner who geeks out on city planning and architecture, the last 2 places I just love spending time in. The first place is the packing house district in the city of Claremont. I just love the small town feel. It reminds me of being on the East Coast. Just the walkability, the shops. It's a college town. It very much reminds me of, in a sense, New Brunswick, although New Brunswick and Claremont are very different. But it almost has
New Brunswick being the home of Rutgers, where you went.
And my brother went to the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. Also very similar to Claremont, small college town, very walkable, cool little shops in the downtown. And sometimes I'll just go there to hang out, to have ice cream or grab a bite to eat, whatnot, have a drink. And it just kind of reminds me of being on the East Coast and a different part of my life.
I haven't been there. Do you know that?
I don't know it by name. Is that on Indian Hill?
Yeah, on
Boulevard?
Indian Hill.
Okay,
So you get off the 10.
Yes.
You go north, and then you get into the downtown Claremont area, and it's just cool. There's ice cream shops. There's Eureka Burger. There's just all these cool places that you can hang out, and it's really vibrant. In the afternoon and the evening, it's just really cool.
How is it right now during the pandemic?
Yeah, I went there probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. There's still a lot of people walking around. There's outdoor seating. The restaurants are doing what they can, and I still enjoy it. It's great spot to be.
And what's the third place?
The third space has to be here in Pasadena. I love Pasadena. I think it's just my first job out of college was here. As a land use consultant for ARA. And I just love the city. There's so much history here. The City Hall building is beautiful. Old Town is great. Just the foundation and the roots of this community. It's designed very well. It's aesthetically pleasing. It's vibrant. There's so many cool places to hang out. And, grab a bite to eat. As a planner, like, this is just a beautiful world-class city.
Nice.
It really is. Pasadena, I mean, it's my home. So, I wasn't born here. I didn't grow up here, but it's my chosen home.
Yeah.
And, that's interesting also, this, our whole San Gabriel Valley emphasis. Someone like you, someone like Russell grew up in this valley.
Yeah.
And have that lifelong attachment to it. I chose to move here to raise my family because this was the perfect family environment, and I chose to come here, and I love it. And Pasadena to me has always been like the finest city in Southern California.
Yeah, I love Pasadena. I don't think I mentioned this earlier. My family, extended family, has been in the San Gabriel Valley a long time. I think my great-great-grandfather purchased property less than a mile away from the San Gabriel Mission in the year 1910, 1911.
Oh,
wow.
So, like, my dad grew up there. His uncle boarded a train at LA Union Station in 1942 or so, and he was getting deployed to Europe to fight in World War II. And as they were going through San Gabriel, my dad's aunt, so like my great aunt, walked out, saw the train, and his uncle threw his military hat at his sister, and they caught it, right? And that was actually the last time that they interacted, because he was killed in France in 1945. But it's just like, there's so much history of my family here in the San Gabriel Valley. And even my mom's side, my mom grew up in La Puente. So both my parents are from the San Gabriel Valley.
Oh, yeah.
Just a lot of history here, but I love it. I think it's a great place. It's very diverse, culturally, ethnically, politically. I like diverse places. I think that gives me, a broadened sense of how unique and how big our world is, right?
Right.
Food is great.
Yeah.
I can get Mexican food. I can get
You
xiaolongbao.
get anything
I can
here.
get anything.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
I can get Mongolian food.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
All right. So, Mayor, thank you so much for being here. I'd like to close and ask if there's any way, if people want to reach out to you or if they want to assist in your campaign, how can they get in touch with you if they want to help?
Sure. So if they have any inquiries regarding city stuff, they're more than welcome to email me this in my official capacity, arodriguez@cityofwalnut.org. If they're interested in, my political stuff for state assembly, they can email me at electandrewrodriguez@gmail.com, or they can log on to my website, andrewrodriguezforassembly.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Russell. I look forward to seeing this out.
Yeah.
We look forward to that too. Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the SGV Master Key. You can find the full back catalog of the SGV Master Key podcast at sgvmasterkey.com. This show was produced and edited by Russell Mono of Kind Monster Productions. Thanks again for listening or watching. We'll see you again very soon in the next episode.
Nice mother. No, kind mother.